Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and to those of you who weren't here this morning, welcome to the event center and to the next presentation. Are you all getting a little excited? Because I am. Woohoo! All righty. Well, without further ado, I'm going to give a short introduction here. At just 25 years old, Tomi Lahren is the youngest political talk show host in history. Controversy is her specialty. She's best known for her signature final thoughts on everything from Beyonce to President Obama and Hillary Clinton. Tomi has exceeded 650 million views in her last year alone. Last year, the BBC News stated Lahren was, quote, bigger than Trump on Facebook. Her Facebook page has more than 4.6 million followers. Her takedown of San Francisco 49er quarterback Colin Kaepernick alone has been viewed more than 75 million times on Facebook. Tomi is now a Fox News contributor. She's a regular on Hannity as well as other shows across Fox and the Fox Business Network. Her commentaries are featured on Fox News Digital, and her political commentary videos will soon be housed on the new and highly anticipated Fox News Digital platform. So without further ado, please give a hearty North Dakota welcome to Tomi Lahren.
Hi guys, how are you? We're gonna get some higher energy. It's Wednesday, so we're halfway there, guys, and we're here in a great state. It's great to be in a great state once again. Now we live in the United States of America, so we all know that all of our states are great, but there are some that are, exceptionally great and right, not just the way they vote, but in the way they think and act and behave, and we're in one of those right now, and I'm happy to be in one. So thank you guys so much for having me. You guys know I'm from South Dakota, right? Yeah, okay. So you know that I'm happy to be back in the Dakotas, because I live in LA now, and they call it the land of fruits and nuts, but nowadays it's more like the land of fruits and nuts and illegal immigrants and feelings, and mostly illegal immigrants, but that's okay. But it's good to be back in the Dakotas, and people from California, I don't know if you guys know this, but people that are kind of outside of the middle of the country, they don't really understand that there's a such thing as North Dakota and South Dakota. They think it's just one thing called Dakota, and that if there isn't just one thing called Dakota, we should make it just one thing called Dakota. So I politely and kindly remind them that there are two Dakotas, just like there are two genders. So all we're asking for is two, not even 64, just two. Two Dakotas, two genders, so we're off to a great start. So I'm here today to talk about energy, but ultimately I'm here to talk about power. And it seems like everyone's talking about power these days, whether it be coal power or electric power or wind power, solar power, gas power. And I must admit, I probably don't know as much about energy and power as most of you in this room, but if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that, and I think you'll agree with this, I like my power American-made, and I like power far, far, far away from anyone with the last name of Clinton. They talk about dirty, dirty power all the time. That's dirty power right there. That was dirty power. Coal's not dirty power. Hillary is dirty power. But luckily, she's just wandering around Whole Foods and in the woods, meandering around. And every time she opens her mouth, I feel better about 2020. And I feel even better that I voted for Donald Trump. And I think many of in this room will probably agree with me on that one. But luckily, we dodged that rotund, pantsuit wearing, email deleting, influence selling bullet. So congratulations to us. And I realized that I've already messed up because I said the word bullet, and we know that that's a trigger word because we're not supposed to talk about guns anymore. Sorry. There's probably going to be a lot of trigger moments in this speech, but I think you guys can bear with me on that one. The left, and many of you in here are probably on the left in this room, so I apologize if anything that I say offends you or triggers you and you don't like it, but now you know how we feel when we watch CNN, MSNBC, ABC, HLN, Disney Channel, HGTV, MTV, VH1, PBS, C-SPAN, pretty much everything except for Fox News. you know how we feel. So if you get triggered, just remember that you guys are winning in that game, and you can maybe handle it for the time that I'm up on this stage. So I appreciate it. You know, the war on coal may not be over, but we do have a president in the White House that's willing to fight for you, fight for your neighbors, your industry, and your livelihood, and I think it's a welcome change. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't think so. I think we're in Trump country, right? I hope we're in Trump country, because if not, then the rest of the speech is not going to make a lot of sense. I have a feeling, you know, we still are, because contrary to popular belief, those that come in to protest do not vote here. I don't know if they're aware of that, but we will make it very apparent. But we had a great success in the election in 2016, and I think many in this room would probably agree with me on that, but it's not over, and the war on coal is not over. We still have a lot of people in power that are looking to take away your livelihood because they think it's dirty, they don't understand it, they don't live here, they don't know that it makes up your communities, your families, and what you've done for generations. They just don't quite seem to understand that, but that's why it's so important that our voices and your voices are heard. And if we don't support this president, if we don't elect America First candidates in 2018, it's really a slippery slope back to, if somebody wants to build a coal-fired power plant, they can. It's just going to bankrupt them. Do you guys remember that one? Yeah, that was a famous line from the left's anointed one, Barack Obama, in 2008. And we can't go back there, because truth is, we fought like hell to get here. And one more administration like the Obama administration would be devastating to you, to me, to hardworking, middle-class Americans all over this country. Because we may be the forgotten American, but we will be forgotten no more. Don't let the fake news fool you. My nose is real. Just want to put that out there. There's been some speculation, so that's fake news. But beyond that, the fake news would like to believe that this country is divided, that we don't know what we stand for, that there's such political division, and in some places that's true, but there's a lot of unity in this country as well, and it's in great places like North Dakota that we find it. But America as a whole is making a comeback, and though I do believe that our president, Donald J. Trump, is a big part of that, it's less about Donald Trump and it's more about the America First message and the America First agenda, and you are all part of that America First message and agenda, so we thank you. In other parts of the country, we thank you for making that message very clear. Donald Trump simply reminded us that those on the coasts are not everything, and that the country doesn't thrive just in New York and LA, but right here in the middle. And I think we made that very clear in 2016. I get that question a lot, you know, how did you get into this? I actually just answered that question backstage. What made you want to do this? Why would you put yourself in the spotlight for ridicule? And it's actually very simple. I grew up where you grew up. I grew up in South Dakota. I grew up in an area where we saw a lot of what was going on. We were part of a lot that was going on in this country, but we really didn't have that much of a voice because no one really seemed to care about what happened in the middle. We were just the rednecks, the hillbillies. We clinged to our guns and our God, and they didn't understand us. And so like many of you, I would watch the nightly news at a young age, and I would watch the mainstream news. For some reason, my parents seemed to like ABC. I don't know why, but that actually taught me very well, because I would watch ABC News, and after every time there was a tragedy, every time that the political discussion would turn to something very contentious, I would listen to them get it wrong over and over and over again, because they didn't understand the middle of this country. They only can speak to what they know. And contrary to their belief, everything that goes on in this country and in the world and in American life does not happen just in New York City and Los Angeles and Chicago. It happens here in the middle. And we don't have sometimes the biggest voice, but we need to change that. And we make that known, not just through the energy industry, because you guys are powering this country, you truly are, but through voting and making sure that we're getting out there, making sure that our voices are heard. We did it in 2016, but we have to continue to do it, because it's middle America that's going to keep this country on track. It's middle America that's going to make sure that America First doesn't just happen for 4 or 8 years, but it continues on, no matter if we have a Republican or a Democrat. It's not about that. It's about America First. It's about Americans first. The people in this room, it's about your livelihood, your families. You come first in your own damn country, and it's time that the people on the coast recognize and listen to that. Why they don't? We care about maybe some different things here in the middle. Maybe that's what does separate us, because CNN thinks that we go home every night and we concern ourselves with porn stars and dossier and Russia, Russia, Russia. That's what they think that we care about. I mean, they dedicate entire specials to the expertise of porn stars, and they think that that's what Americans care about, or that we care about the Russia collusion. You know, I know that we care about that because we're Americans, but when I speak to my family that lives in South Dakota, almost my entire family still lives and works and raises their family in South Dakota. I rarely hear my mom and dad, when they go home at night and call me on the phone, say, oh, you know, Tommy, we're really concerned about the dossier today and what Stormy Daniels thinks of our president. They rarely tell me that, if ever. More importantly, they care about jobs, they care about the economy, they care about having a job to go to and to do well. That's what Americans care about. I don't think it's just in the middle, but I know for sure it is in the middle that we care about those things. And nowhere does it better than North Dakota. I know all of you aren't in the energy industry. I know some of you are members of the public as well, but you really all benefit from it. I mean, North Dakota has benefited greatly from the energy industry, and your industry actually accounted for $3.4 billion of the state's economic base in 2015, which is the last time that metric was taken and published. So that's a lot of money for North Dakotans, and that's not just jobs for those that work in the energy industry, but that's jobs for people in the service industries as well. It's a job creator. It's sustaining livelihoods and families, and you all know that better than anyone, because that's real money for real Americans. And that doesn't just impact North Dakota either. You're generating electricity at a cost significantly below that of all coal and natural gas power plants nationwide. That's real savings for real Americans, and you should be proud of that, because you really are powering not only North Dakota and Minnesota, even though they don't want to believe it, you're powering the country with your hard work. I know there's a lot of discussion about Minnesota as well. I might speak to Minnesota a little bit more if I didn't have to fly through there in a few hours. They're not North Dakota and South Dakota, I will say that. But hey, they're our neighbors. We love them. But I'll just talk about coal, and I know that Minnesota talks about coal a lot. Everybody wants, cleaner energy. They want renewable energy. That's the, the in thing to talk about. I don't know why we demonize coal so much. Why do they demonize it? Why is coal Satan? I don't understand it. If people knew things about it took a factual interest in what coal actually is, it's just ancient wood that's been under pressure for millions of years, just like Hillary Clinton. Millions of years. She's not so much wood as she is cardboard, but that didn't work with my joke, so we're going to call it ancient wood. Thank you, Hillary. And while I'm on the subject of Hillary, just because I think this is very important, because I'm in a room with North Dakotans and probably a lot of Trump supporters and a lot of level-headed Americans in this room, I just want to take a poll because I think there are a lot of women in this room, and I would just like to clear something up for Hillary, just in case by chance she's watching. A couple weeks ago, Hillary told us that the only reason that women voted for Donald Trump is because their husbands, their bosses, and their sons told them to. So if you thought with your own brain and you voted for Donald Trump, could you please raise your hand? Thank you. Oh, you mean you guys can think for yourselves? That's wonderful. I just wanted to clear that up for Hillary because she was mistaken. She also fell down the stairs shortly after that interview in India, which is just evidence that she's allergic to her own bullshit. But she falls a lot. Just bullshit is so slippery. What can you say? She was also wearing a stupid outfit, if you can imagine that. I know, very out of character for Hillary. But, the liberals love Hillary. They voted for her, of course. And, your livelihood and my life would probably be a lot different if she were president. I know they fantasize about that. And, in fact, in many places, they still think that she is the president. But these liberals, they sit in their gated communities on their self-made moral pedestals. And they lecture the rest of us on things they know nothing about, like, guns, jobs, climate change. They really love to lecture you and I about those things. And we saw it heavily in this state last year, but it's not going to go away anytime soon. But let's talk about climate change for a minute. I know that's a hot topic because on CNN they cover two things, Russia and climate change, so we're going to hit one of those right now. They call it climate change. I call it weather, but again, semantics, this is all words. It's funny because they used to call it global warming until temperatures fell, and then they're like, well, this isn't going to work anymore, so we'll call it climate change, because then either way they win, because it's sunny, climate change, it rains, climate change, it's windy, climate change, it snows, climate change. They want to set themselves up so that they're always right. That's kind of like what they did with their whole name-changing thing with Obamacare. You know, it was Obamacare, and then it failed, and then it was the Affordable Care Act. They removed the Obama from it. Same thing they're trying to do with global warming and climate change. And I know all of you here are probably as frustrated as I am when they talk about it. But, you know, it's their faith, climate change, for a lot of those on the left and those on the left and right coast. Climate change is their faith. It's their religion. Many of them don't believe in God, so they have to have something to believe in, so they believe in climate change, and they're on a crusade for it. It's their God. It's their everything, or so they claim. So they look down their noses at you because you work in the coal industry, and Hillary Clinton and CNN told them coal is responsible for the inevitable climate change apocalypse. But I'm guessing that they don't realize that lignite-fired power plants have invested about $2 billion in state-of-the-art technology to keep our air clean, and that investment accounts for about 20 to 30% of the total cost of a power plant. So you in this room know that the environment is important, and keeping the environment clean is important. I think that that's something that those on the left and those in big cities don't seem to understand about places like North and South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, and even Minnesota, is that we love this land and we want to keep it safe, we want to keep it clean, we want to keep it clean for generations to come because we want to stay here. So why on earth would we have a plant, whether it be a coal mine or a power plant, that would put our families for generations to come at risk? We wouldn't do it. If you look at the basis for the word conservative, it's conservation, because we do believe in conservation. We believe in our environment. We believe in clean air. We believe in all those things. But we also believe in American jobs. We believe in sustainable energy. And that's something that you in this room fight for every day. And it's not an easy battle, because you're fighting a lot of those that don't understand what you do, and they demonize what you do. Now, if these climate change warriors, they only come to your part of the world when they're protesting something, or if they paid attention, they would know that North Dakota is one of only 15 states in the nation that meets all of the EPA's strict federal ambient air quality standards. So they would know that it's important to you, and maintaining that is important to you, and you can do both. They don't believe that you can have sustainable energy and also fuel your economy. You can do both, and the state of North Dakota depends on it. And if they would stop talking, we'd have a lot less hot air in the environment. But as far as I know, they're still talking. But let's be honest, what would these elitists do without the energy that you break your backs to generate? Because I'm sorry, guys, you can't power your lives on feelings and fairy dust as much as you may believe that's so. And I see it in LA all the time. People that are driving their cars, that are powering their giant homes, and they think they don't understand that that comes from somewhere. And fossil fuels are God's gift to this nation, and we should be using it to their fullest extent, because that's how we become energy independent. That's how we make sure that we are in charge of our own future and our children are in charge of their future, and we don't have to depend on places like Venezuela or Saudi Arabia for our energy. We make sure we can do it here. And you guys are breaking your backs every day to remind the nation of that, and still they demonize you. But facts don't care about their feelings, so luckily we can continue on. But when we say things like make America great again, it means American energy independence, and it means jobs for oil, coal, steel, and factory workers. And our president has done many things to ensure that your livelihoods are protected. And he has said that the war on coal is over, or it's on its way to being over, because he won't let there be a war on coal, because he believes in you, he believes in your livelihood. And he kept his promise to rip up the Paris Accord, and I know that many in this room couldn't be happier, because I don't know if they even realize this, but even by the EPA's own models, if we virtually eliminated all carbon emissions in America, global temperatures would drop less than 0.2 degrees Celsius. That's what they're fighting for. That's what they want to put you out of business for. So we can maybe drop the temperature less than 0.2 degrees Celsius. So your jobs mean less to these environmental warriors than less than 0.2 degrees Celsius. That should put things in perspective. It should fire you up. It should make sure that you're going out to vote in 2018 and 2020, because your livelihoods depend on it. So the Paris Agreement, like all the other environmental agreements, really has very little to do with protecting the actual environment, a hell of a lot more with control, government control, and globalism. And that's something that we fight every day, and that's something that our president is fighting, and he wants to make sure that you have a job, and he wants to make sure that your families have jobs. And so again, I will say we can sit in this room, we can pat ourselves on the back for being Trump supporters, we can pat on ourselves on the back for electing him in 2016, but if we do not go out and vote in 2018 and 2020, we will lose that. We will get someone who does not understand you and wants to put you out of business. We put Americans and American jobs first in this country, but it's up to us to maintain that, because if we don't, we're going to lose it. And your economy is going to dwindle, and nobody in this room wants that, I know. And I don't want to be a fearmonger, but I just know how important it is, because I'm surrounded by these people each and every single day who want to make sure that your voice gets quieter, and they want to make sure that the voices of the extreme left, the illegal immigrants, and the globalists get louder and louder and louder, because we have too long been the silent majority. It is time to get louder. It is time to stand up for your families. It's time to stand up for your industry. It's time to correct the narrative, because if you don't, no one will. And I'm working like hell to make sure that your message gets out there, but I need all of your help. I need your voices, and I need your support. I really do. There is a large portion of a certain political party that's still looking to put you out of business, and they aren't even shy about admitting it. It was at a Democratic town hall in Ohio during this last election where Hillary Clinton said, and I quote, "We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business." She said that. She didn't make a mistake. She said that very explicitly and very clearly. And then, of course, she said, "Oh, well, wait, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean I'm going to put him out of business." Oh, it gets better. She says, "I'm going to run him out of business. Yes, I am. But," oh, but this, Hillary's got a plan, guys. She had a plan. She's going to run you out of business. But she's going to have an economic policy that helps you guys find other things to do. No, she really said that. No, forget what you've been doing for generations. Forget what you know. Forget what you've built your lives on and your families have built their lives. Forget about that. You can find something else to do. Hillary's going to find you something else to do. Don't worry. Because, you know, your industry is dying anyway, so she's helping you out. That's what she thought. She'll really extend herself to you and make sure that you can find something else to do with your time, other ways to make money. You know, what you've known on your lives really doesn't quite matter to Hillary Clinton. How utterly disgusting and condescending that was. And I think that there are several coal miners that called her out on that. And of course, she had a coughing fit and forgot what she said. But that's really the logic of the left. And it's not just Hillary, that's the logic of the left. Certainly it was the logic of Barack Obama, but they believe that coal miners and energy workers should just find something else to do. But here's the fun part, illegal immigrants, they shouldn't even be bothered to follow the laws, learn English, pay taxes. They shouldn't be bothered to do any of that. But coal miners and energy producers, you guys can just find something else to do, because we're going to power the world on, you know, renewable energy. Again, I would like to see them power their homes on all this renewable energy, and then when it fails, I wonder who they're going to look to. The people that they're trying to drive out of business. That would be the people in this room. But this shouldn't be a partisan thing. It really shouldn't. Jobs for the American people should benefit both political parties, left, right, center. It shouldn't be a partisan thing, but sadly, like everything else in this country, it's become a partisan thing. All of our leaders should be focused on making America great again and making sure that your jobs and your livelihoods are protected, but they don't. They've forgotten you along the way. Some have. I can say, because I know him and I know what he believes in, this president has not forgotten about you, and he's not forgotten about the forgotten man. So I want you to know that and take comfort in that. But if we don't get him back in office in 2020, things are going to change drastically. It's not easy to be in your industry, but easy is for weak people. Easy is for whiners, complainers, and losers. You're winners, you're workers, you're the backbone of this country. You are the forgotten Americans, the silent majority, but let's make sure that you get a little bit louder, let your voices be heard. And you folks know better than anybody that no one gives you power. You make it and you take it. And if you're ever feeling down and you feel like, you know, maybe it's just a bad day and you're worried about your industry, or was, you know, a hard day in whatever you're doing because your jobs aren't easy, I want you to remember 3 things that are very important. Number 1, and this is the most important, you live in the greatest nation on the face of the earth, and don't ever let anybody tell you that you don't. People are breaking down barriers to get into this country, not get out of it. When's the last time you saw someone running to Venezuela? Yeah, I didn't think so. They're running here for a reason. And you guys know that. So take comfort that you do live in the greatest nation on the face of the earth, and we fought like hell to make it great. And it doesn't stay great by abandoning all the things that made it great. It stays great by bringing those things back. Traditional family values, constitutional rights, even though they want to chip those away too. That's what made this nation great. It's people like you that work day in and day out and don't ask for a damn thing from anybody. That's what makes this country great. And that's the number one thing. And that's what people in this room understand probably better than anyone else in this country, is that we're not looking for a handout in North Dakota. We're not looking in North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, and the rest of the middle of this country. We're not looking for a handout. We're not looking for someone to pat us on the back and say, oh, we'll give you assistance, we'll find you another job. We're telling the government to get the hell out of the way so that we can give ourselves a hand up and make sure that our families have food on the table, we can send our American-born children to college. That's what people in this room care about. That's the message of Middle America. That's the message of coal country, and we will get that message out there because they can't ignore us forever. They could in 2016, they're not going to be able to in 2018 or in 2020, but I need you guys to get a little louder with your voices. Thank you. And the second thing that should give you comfort is that Donald Trump is your president. That's a very important point, and I know I've said it a lot in this speech, and it's not because I'm some kind of Trump cheerleader, because like I said, it's less about Trump, it's more about his agenda. It's about America first and Americans first, about protecting your jobs and making sure that you can live your lives and you can pursue what you want to pursue and that you can afford the things you want to afford, maybe have a little bit extra left over to treat your families and yourselves. That's what America first means. That's what Make America Great Again means. So that's number two. Number one, you live in the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Number two, Donald Trump is your president. And number three, this one is important, Hillary Clinton is not. Remember those three things. Really, God bless all of you. I know that that's not something that they say very often anymore, but I know that you still say it here. God bless all of you. Take care. Make sure that you fight for yourselves. Make sure your voices get a little bit louder. Don't let anyone shame you into the corner. Don't let anyone tell you your industry is dirty. This is the industry that built your lives and your families, and you work very hard every day to sustain it. And that's creating jobs not only for your families, but for the community members around you that aren't in your industry. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you so much for welcoming me back. It's been such a good time here in North Dakota. I'm going to come back when it's a little bit warmer. We're going to do a tour of the coal mine, because I really want to bring that to the viewers at Fox. I really want them to see what you guys go through every day. I want them to see why you break your backs. I want them to see how important this industry is to you and to the rest of the country, because truth is, sometimes if people can't see it, their perception is reality, and they don't understand how much it means to you, how much it means to me. So I'm going to bring them back here, and we're going to make sure we get that accomplished. And we're going to go all over this country to all the forgotten Americans and make sure that their voices are heard, because we are Americans. We deserve to come first in our own country, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens. But at this time, I know maybe you have some questions for me, anything and everything. I'd love to take those. So if there is a microphone floating around, I'd love to answer some of your questions. We're finding them now.
By the way, I'm a fellow South Dakota.
All right, where are you from?
Gettysburg.
Oh, okay. My dad was born there, actually. There we go.
Is my lav on?
No, not really. They can hear me and you. Okay. All right, where's our microphone at?
Here we go. First question back here.
All right.
Hi, my name is Amy Grace Wiedrick, and I am a freshman in high school. You have always been a very big inspiration to me, because you are a woman with a very strong, powerful, and you are not ashamed to make your voice heard, especially in today when many other young people do not really accept other young conservatives. So I would like to know, what is your inspiration to keep on going strong?
I actually get that question a lot, and thank you so much for asking it. Thank you also for being here. That really means a lot to me. And I say this time and time again, the fans or the followers or the supporters that I have that mean the most to me really are young women, because that means a lot to me to be able to be some kind of a role model. But I'll tell you why I do it. People ridicule me up and down, left and right, and on the left and on the right on a daily basis. I mean, look at my Twitter comments and you'll see that. But what they don't understand when they're saying all the horrible, nasty things about me is that I don't do this for them. I don't do this for the haters. I don't do this for people that kneel for the national anthem. I don't do this for people that hate cops. I don't do this for people that look down on Middle America. I do this for Middle America. I do this for the husband and wives that go home every night and they just want to know how they're going to pay their mortgage, how they're going to put their kids through school. I do this for people like you who go to school and they're frustrated with the constant indoctrination. I do this for you because if I can take some of that brunt, if I can take some of the ridicule and they can make fun of me, then maybe, just maybe, you'll see that I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I have a great life, and maybe that'll make you believe in yourself enough to have a strong voice and believe in yourself. There's never going to be this light at the end of the tunnel that everyone's always talking about. You light that up yourself. You get out there, you get loud, you be vocal, and don't let anyone tell you that you're not enough, because you are absolutely enough, and your voice deserves to be heard. And I say this a lot of times talking about the gun debate in this country, but I think it really applies everywhere. You know, my First Amendment rights and my Second Amendment rights and all of my rights do not end where some people's feelings begin. Sometimes they like to believe that because the mainstream media reinforces that, and they reinforce the idea that people like David Hogg are the voice of this country and the voice of young people, but they're not. And people like you are what's really going to be a voice to challenge that voice. So I would encourage you to continue to do that and take leadership roles and make sure that you aren't silenced, because I tell you something that has always been true for me. No one hunts small deer. So if someone's saying something nasty about you, they're coming after you, it's because you're a threat to them, it's because they're jealous of you, or it's because they wish that they could speak with such confidence and conviction that you have. So please remember that, and please continue to be outspoken and strong. It means the world to me that you're here. Thank you.
So Tomi, I'm actually curious. You know, you do stand very firmly in your beliefs, and that's really important that you do stand up and speak loudly. However, I'm curious what you think there is to be gained by emphasizing differences between political parties, between different parts of the country, especially when you're talking to an industry that needs to innovate and move forward and not look backwards. How do you think we can work together?
Well, we have to work together, but I think that, and you know, I get this question a lot. It's like, oh, well, Tomi, the things that you say, you know, they're divisive, you're dividing people, and I don't look at that way at all, because I think many of you know, and I spoke to this a lot in my speech, that when one side controls the narrative and when one side controls the conversation, the other side isn't heard. So in order to have that conversation, in order to work together, both sides have to be able to be heard. And for too long, conservatives and those on the right, it's our own fault. For too long, we've cowered in the corner. For too long, we've said our voice doesn't matter as much as the left. They're the ones that are on the moral high ground. They called me a name, so I guess I better stop talking. And that's exactly, in my belief, and what I've seen day to day, not only in the news industry, but just in life, is that that is what a certain political party would like the right to do. They would like conservatives to be scared, to be quiet, to hear a name and then cower in the corner and be head shy because they don't want to be labeled a certain name or certain way. And I think for too long we've done that, and it's our own fault as conservatives. But for me, what's so important is that we do need to work together as a country. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. But when one side of the discussion gets the media coverage, when one side of the discussion believes that they have the moral high ground and then everyone else must fall to their feet, that's where we have an issue, because you can't work together if one side is too afraid to stand up for their beliefs and for what they know to be true. So I agree with you. We need to come together. And it's not so much emphasizing differences. Differences are part of what make this country great as well. But it's also making sure that people in this country that have too long been forgotten and silenced believe they have a voice again, that they can come to that table. Because otherwise, it's a one-sided table, and we know how that works out for Middle America. It doesn't turn out well. And that's why the middle of this country has been ignored for so long. And I believe that's why you had the election of Donald Trump. Because those in the middle finally said, we've got someone that's going to go out there, speak the truth, not comfort us with a lie, sometimes hurt us with the truth, but it's better that way than not having a place at the table at all. And so that's why I think it's part of my role to do that. But I agree with you, and I believe we need to come together, and we need to innovate together and work together hand in hand. Conservatives, liberals, those that don't have a political affiliation whatsoever, we do need to work together. But it can't be at the expense of conservative voices. I hope they answer your question.
You know, I would just comment on that too a little bit. I don't think it's so much as even conservatives. There's been a concerted effort among, I'm going to call it the swamp, the pro-government establishment in Washington. There's been a concerted effort not just to silence conservatives, but to silence the voice of business in this country. You know, the mom and pop Main Street folks are being cut out of the conversation. The pro-regulatory globalist sort of view is sort of pervasive out there. Comment on that a little bit, you know?
Absolutely, and I think that that's, again, we know that small business is the driver of the economy in this country, so not just the energy industry, but all small business and small businesses that depend on the energy economy and vice versa. There has been an effort to keep those people silent and that believe that they don't maybe matter as much because their voices, their microphone isn't as loud. But I think that's, again, that's why it is important to speak out and to economics more than anything, because that's the thing. You know, I sit here as someone who's a conservative, but I think that most of you know this about me. I'm very much a fiscal conservative. I'm socially more moderate, and that's how a lot of young people are in this country. But I think with jobs in the economy first, and I think that's something that all Americans can come together on, because there are a lot of people on the left and Democrats that own small businesses as well, and they can see that regulations, whether it comes from the EPA or wherever else, is damaging to your livelihoods. So I would hope that, again, like, it's a perfect description calling it the swamp, because there's swamp rats on both sides. Absolutely.
Yep, go ahead.
I was wondering, what are you guys at Fox News doing when there's a constant battle from the left to silence everybody at Fox News? Now it's Laura Ingraham. And what's your plan? Does anybody say, hey, you can't say this, you can't say that? And also, why don't the people on the right do the same thing to, say, Saturday Night Live or to Rachel Maddow or something like that?
Advertising.
Why don't we try to boycott their advertisers?
Sure. Well, I think that that's what you saw. I know that Sean Hannity dealt with this earlier in the year with some issues as well, as far as advertisers pulling out, and I know that that's something that's happening at Fox. But I will tell you, although I can't speak to that side of it because I'm an employee of Fox, but I'm not in the nitty-gritty of what happens on that level. I can tell you this: that the true Fox viewer, the conservative viewer, the middle American, the forgotten American, if you will, that makes up the Fox News base, we tend to flock to Fox more so when it's in the middle of controversy or when advertisers pull out, et cetera. And I will say this, just like we saw with the NFL this year, the best way to let our voices be heard on the right or in the middle, or the moderates, the centrists in this country, is as consumers. That's why the NFL's ratings are dwindling. That's why the ratings for a lot of these late night programs that are leftists, that are continue to bash Trump, that's why they're failing. That's why they're not doing well, because we don't want to listen to that anymore. And we're actually going to talk about this later in a panel, but that's why shows like Last Man Standing and Roseanne are doing so well, because they echo the sentiments of middle America. So what we don't do on the right, and not everyone at Fox News is a conservative, by the way, there are a lot of other voices there, but what we don't do at Fox News or on the right is we don't call for people to be fired, or we don't call for people to be boycotted, because we don't need to. We believe that the viewers will let their voices be heard through their viewership and through ratings. And we're doing very well in ratings. So I think at the end of the day, we win. And the president watches our channel, so I'll take that as a win. He enjoys it.
Got another question from Sherry right there.
I'm wondering what you think about term limits, particularly the Pelosi's in Washington. Will the president be able to get legislation like that through?
I think that's something that's been on the president's agenda. I don't know if it's priority one, but I think it should be. That's been conversation that's been had for a long time, but they're never going to do it to themselves. They're never going to impose term limits on themselves. So it has to be something that we vote on. It has to be something that we make a voting issue, if you will. So if that's something that we want to see, we're going to have to make it a voting issue. But then at the end of the day, even if we don't, we can still speak with our votes. I think that the biggest thing in this country, and not to go off your point, but I think the most important thing in making sure the integrity and the voice of Americans is heard loudly and proudly in this country is really the integrity of our elections. And I'm I'm not talking about Russia collusion. I'm talking about those that are voting that are not citizens or sometimes dead, that are still voting. I mean, to me, voter fraud is a huge problem in this country. So we need to make sure that, you know what, if the Pelosi's of the world are going to be elected again, we need to make sure it's actual Americans who are voting for those people, misguided as they may be, and not dead people and illegal immigrants. That's just where I stack up on that one. But I believe in term limits as well, but it's going to have to be brought to the forefront because I think a lot of the times it gets lost in the noise. But I think that, you know, I even saw on the local TV here with some of your local ads that that's something that some of your elected leaders are pushing for and believe in. So if you guys are able to do it, hey, more power to you. I think it's a great idea. Nancy Pelosi's old anyway. Did you guys see how many times she adjusted her dentures during the State of the Union?
Oh, my.
I don't know what was better.
Question right over here.
I don't know what was better, her adjusting her dentures or when Joe Kennedy like drooled on himself. I mean, what a winning team. God, I'm nervous for 2020. Boy, that's what we got to work with. I'm all right. I feel good. All right, where's the next one?
Hi, Tommy. Steve Bakken here. Had the pleasure of meeting you last night on our flight. You know, you keep coming back to the heartland, and I think one of the reasons that we rely on the heartland as much as we do because we still are seated in those core family values here. We had the opportunity to hear another young conservative who sounds like she wants to follow in your footsteps, which is awesome. How do we get that message out to the coast? If you could put your crystal ball on for a minute, how do we get that message that we have in the heartland to the East Coast and the West Coast, where it seems like there's so many young people that are invigorated by the liberal agenda? How do we get our message, that conservative message, and get them engaged when it's not just the heartland? We're the low-hanging fruit for the conservative movement. The East and the West Coast, that's a big concern.
Right, and you know, that's something that I'm certainly trying to battle each and every single day, and I think the main thing is making conservative cool again, making family values cool again, and understanding that a lot of the problems that we have in this country are due to the breakdown of the American family, and that's something that we work so hard in the middle of the country to maintain are those family values, and having an ideal situation of a mom and dad and a family that comes together, that eats together, that goes to church together, that prays together, that does activities together. That's something that I grew up with, but I know that many of my friends in LA and friends that I meet across this country that are on the coast, that live in more urban areas, they don't have that basis, and I think that we're starting to understand it now when we see these tragedies happen in our backyard and across the country, is that it's a mental health issue, that it's a breakdown of the American family issue. It's we're not paying attention, we're not seeing the warning signs because we're not spending enough time together to truly understand what's going on in this country. But I believe that having that firm value system in place and that foundation is so important. What I try to do every day, whether it be talking on Fox News or what I've done is on social media, I think the First Amendment is the most powerful way to get our message across because the left really dominates the mainstream media. I mean, CNN and MSNBC and the rest of them, as I mentioned in my speech, they really dominate the messaging to young people. But through social media, which I've been very successful on, we're able to get out a counter message and hopefully empower more young people like we saw today to stand up and say, you know what, I don't believe in what's happening at my school. I don't believe what my professor's saying. So in a very respectful, dignified, and civil way, I'm going to go make a YouTube video or I'm going to make a Facebook Live segment and I'm going to put it out there so that the world knows how I feel and they can be empowered to do so. Because if we let the David Hoggs of the world hog the stage, then the conservative voices are just going to get smaller. But I think you're seeing a lot of young people now that feel the power of social media. So I would encourage them not just to use it to post selfies, but use it to have their political message be valued as much as their lighting and filter. Thank you.
Tommy, I think I know why you are so feared by the left, and that's because you and others like Milo are growing the conservative tent. You said you're not necessarily a social conservative, but I love the fact that you're building the tent of fiscal conservatives and growing our movement. And I think that's why you're feared. Can you talk to that? And Milo, you're kind of a phenomenon where you're humorous and yet you're able to expand the tent for conservatives and also maybe just address what the heck is going on with Glenn Beck.
Well, that one has been a lost cause for a while, so I don't know if I can really speak to that one specifically. I kind of turned my back on that one, wish him all the best. I'm a Christian person, so I hope that he, finds stability in somewhere. But beyond that, talking about the tent, I think that that's something that I have been frustrated with the conservative party and conservative movement for a while, is that we tend to turn people away, whereas the left wants to include everyone. I mean, the left will tell you that if you breathe, that you must be a liberal. And the conservatives, too often we say, well, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you don't follow every single tenet of what we believe conservatives follow, so you're not a conservative. And I think that President Trump really broke that barrier, and he showed a lot of people in this country that maybe didn't even know they were conservative, but they believed in America, and they believed in Americans, and they believed in hard work, in the family, that they were conservative as well, and that they were Republicans, members of the GOP, what have you. I think that's what's so important, and I do believe in a big tent. I don't believe in excluding anyone from our party, because if they believe in the same message that we believe in, they believe in a strong border, they believe in tax cuts for 80% of Americans, if they believe in an immigration system that's fair, that's based on the rule of law, if they believe in keeping American jobs safe and secure, keeping our intellectual property safe and secure, if they believe in educating our young people with those values, why would we not welcome them into our party? Because they look different, because they sound different, because they might not check every box that we believe we need to fill. I say BS on that. I say, let's welcome everyone in. I was at the inauguration party, and I saw Caitlyn Jenner. People are like, oh, Caitlyn Jenner's there, uh-oh. And I'm thinking, why would we ever turn someone away like that? That is a great person and great voice that says, hey, look, I might not look like what a stereotypical conservative is supposed to look like, but I believe in the message, so we should definitely be more welcoming. And, really, it is on us to do that. And I think that young conservatives are doing it more and more, but I think it's the older generations as well that let's come together. Let's take the values and the traditions of this movement and let's marry it with some new ideas to make sure that we are able to get our voices out and still hold some remnant of power in years to come. Because if we lose it, I fear we're not going to get it back, because the left has gone so far left that they're not recognizable anymore. I think that Kennedy would be considered a Republican by today's standards, and that's what we need to remind those that are more moderate, is that there is a center in this country as well. Thank you.
We don't want to overtax you, because we've got and that's a good one, overtax you. We do have a panel of local celebrity talk folks here, the North Dakota crowd, and you're going to hang around for that conversation. That's going to be a lot of fun. Scott Hennon, Chris Berg, Rob Port asking this lady questions. Are you kidding me? This is going to be great. So if you're okay with it, we're going to take about a 5-minute break to get the panel set up. Just to take a brief break, maybe make a dash and do what you need to do, and we're going to get the panel set up on stage and resume, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, 5 minutes,
By the way,
folks.
if you are going to go to the restroom, you can use any one that you want in this country. Be whatever you want.
Okay.